years. Nothing wrong with that. But J.J. McCarthy is coming from an offense where, frankly, it wasn't like he was Patrick Mahomes. Like they were running the ball a lot at Michigan, and he was throwing when they needed to. So running the ball more often, not putting him in third and long, that's going to be a way the Vikings make his life easier in what really is his rookie season.
I just checked in with a source in Minnesota just to gauge. With all the injuries, I know we'll get into the receiver situation in a minute, but with all the injuries, how confident are you that J.J. McCarthy will be ready to execute this offense, to operate what needs to happen week one? And I was told a 7. And for a number of different reasons, it's the short-term memory. People forget that in the game that he got injured in the preseason last year, he threw an interception, and then he finishes that game with a couple of different touchdown passes. So the short-term memory he's been able to display, whether it be in practice, going against that Brian Flores defense that he goes through every single day, turning that into a great joint practice against what's projected to be a top 10 defense with the New England Patriots last week. The pieces are in place. The verbiage is going to shrink. The playbook is going to shrink for J.J. McCarthy. But Hannah, Lucky Jackson, Deshaun Jones, Thayer Thomas, do any of those names ring a bell?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Those are the receivers that he was throwing to this past week. Yes. No one has taken a snap in an NFL game. It feels like they have to sign somebody here.
What about that, Jeremy?
Yes, they have to sign somebody or trade for somebody, which I expect they will do in the next 3 or 4 days as roster cuts come. Adam Thielen, he's the name that is out there. There's a potential reunion on the books. Here's what I understand about the situation. The Vikings inquired to Carolina about Thielen early in the week, and then it was sort of quiet, but it's still out there as a possibility. The Panthers are not just going to give Thielen away. This is not a roster cut situation. He's really a part of their 3 receiver sets with the young players and Bryce Young. They like Thielen a lot. So they would have to come to some sort of agreement. He's due $6+ million in salary, too. They had to figure out the money. So Minnesota's looking at other options as well, league-wide. They're talking to a lot of teams about the potential of adding a receiver. I do expect them to add one here soon.
Yeah, I mean, what a comforting guy for a young quarterback to have.
And he knows this offense. Let's not forget. I mean, Adam Thielen is the feel-good story in Minnesota. We both covered him at separate, different stints in Minnesota, and he's worked with J.J. McCarthy. They were a part of throwing sessions. It was C.J. Ham, T.J. Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen this offseason, so he already has that familiarity with his would-be pass catcher. And red zone threat? Wouldn't it be good to have Adam Thielen down there and on top of Justin Jefferson as well?
Absolute money in the red zone. Bill?
Yeah, the Vikings did clear out $3.7 million in cash with the Harrison Phillips trade earlier this week. So I know Jerry mentioned that over $6 million base salary. Maybe that clears out some of the money to get that done. Maybe Carolina eats part of it to get a draft pick. They have some young receivers they like in Carolina as well. So clearing out some reps for someone like maybe a Jalen Coker would make sense. So kind of everyone could benefit here. We just have to sort of see if we can get everything over the finish line.
Yeah, Thielen would be a cool full circle story. Obviously, Jeremy is going to be all over that. All right, as we're moving on to some top stories with Jeremy. Jerry Jones has been making the rounds big time with media outlets in support of his new documentary. But, of course, what everybody's asking about is his star, Micah Parsons, who has asked for a trade. And Jerry has not been shy on that subject. He feels that he and Micah had a deal. Jones sat down with Stephen A. in a podcast that releases today.
There's right now about 3 entities involved in the Micah Parsons deal that really count, and that's not to dismiss everything about the organization and the Cowboys.
What are the 3 entities?
Micah, me, sitting out there, and about a mile back is that agent.
Man, he's not only insulting his player, he's insulting one of the most powerful agents in the business, David Mulligetta. What's going on with this standoff?
Well, Hannah, Micah Parsons is in a precarious spot because he wants to be traded, but quietly he's getting ready for a season. I'm told that he's essentially doing 2-a-days on his own. He's lifting and he's running. He's in all the meetings. So there are people with the building who believe that he will be ready to play week 1 and that he will play week 1. If you ask around on the player side, you don't necessarily get the same answer, that he's pretty dug in. So something has to give. They got about 10 to 12 days to figure something out. They've gotten trade inquiries from other teams. Dallas right now, I'm told, is not inclined to move on and make a trade on Micah Parsons. They want to keep him. Next, we have Brian Robinson Jr. traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a 6th-round pick. The Washington Commanders will cover a portion of his $3+ million salary, so this helps both teams. 49ers were decimated by injuries at running back behind Christian McCaffrey. They get some much-needed help. Now Washington gets to crystallize their running back room. Austin Eckler, 3rd down back. They have a young rookie, Bill Krosky-Merritt, they really like. Some other veterans will get some looks as well, and sort of a by-committee approach at running back in Washington. And you got the QBs with the Saints. Big weekend for both Spencer Rattler, who you see there, and Tyler Shuck, the rookie. My sense after asking around the league is that Rattler could have a slight edge right now, but it has been pretty close enough to where Kellen Moore wants to see more. He needed to get through this week to be able to determine who his starter is going to be. But, Shuck has had some bright moments, so he's made a little bit of a move, and things are definitely in flux in New Orleans, but they're going to have a new signal caller regardless. They're still trying to sort all that out through the weekend.
Yeah, and if they don't sort it out this season, there's always the quarterback-heavy draft coming up, which a lot of folks there are focused on. Still ahead with rosters nearly set, the Browns' quarterback situation remains a mystery, at least in terms of the backup job, but somebody here thinks that could be an open competition all the way until Week 1. Will be the starter in Cleveland. Who his backup is, though, that remains to be seen. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders will each get reps in their final preseason game. Sanders says he's ready for anything.
I don't care. Whenever it's time for me to get out there and play, I'm going to play. Whenever it's time for the lights to come on, I'm going to do my thing. I'm not concerned about when it is. I'm not concerned about, how many reps I'm getting at this point is what it is, because I know when the lights come on, when everything go on, when the pressure's on, you know who I am. And I'm always be that way.
Meanwhile, Kenny Pickett's still dealing with a hamstring injury. He hasn't seen any preseason action. What are you hearing about that quarterback room there in Cleveland?
Yeah, so the Browns are trying to figure out whether they're going to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster or roster cuts looming. I know that they do not plan to trade Dillon Gabriel, that's for sure. They also don't plan to trade Shedeur Sanders. They like the rookies and what they've done so far. It looks like they want to continue to develop both. So the question is, what do they do with Kenny Pickett, who's been out most of camp? They like what he was doing before he got hurt. So they're trying to sort all this out. They are open-minded about keeping 4 on the roster, which is somewhat rare, but they've done before in Cleveland. They're going to go from there. So you'll see this weekend Joe Flacco probably playing about 20 to 25 snaps, then Dillon Gabriel, then Shedeur Sanders. Gabriel has had the edge on Sanders so far.
Yeah, even though he had a couple of turnovers in his last preseason game, Courtney.
Yeah, to Jeremy's point, there's no incentive for Cleveland to get rid of any of these quarterbacks until they absolutely have to. But that's why this weekend matters so much, and next week's practice matters so much. This quarterback 2 battle is going to go all the way up until Week 1 based on what we haven't seen from these guys. There hasn't been one of these young quarterbacks go up and grab that role. Dillon Gabriel last week, some good third down throws, but then the pick 6 that he threw.
And a fumble.
Shedeur Sanders, the first preseason game against Carolina, has a great performance, and then he has the oblique injury. So all of that good momentum seems to go away just because of the time that he's missed. So for these 2 quarterbacks and the opportunity that they have, as Jeremy pointed out, Dillon Gabriel will get the snaps right behind Joe Flacco, and then it will be Shedeur Sanders. This game goes a really long way in determining the pecking order.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. Sam, what are you going to be looking at when you're assessing the 2 rookies?
I'll be looking for more of the wow throws that we saw from Shedeur Sanders earlier in the preseason. There are a couple of throws that were not rookie-type throws or, hey, I'm trying to figure it out throws. Those were NFL-caliber throws. That touchdown that he had rolling out to the left in the end zone. Also, some of the one-handed catches that you saw. These are like jump-off-the-screen type of throws. That's what I'm looking for from Shedeur. From Dillon Gabriel, I'm looking for him to take away those turnovers. You're going against the 2s and the 3s, and though Dillon Gabriel looks sharp, if you're evaluating him, you're going to look at the pick 6 and look at the fumble. So if he could reduce some of those and still shine against 2s and 3s, that'll help elevate him. But for Shedeur, keep the ball clean, use your legs, and then let those throws jump off the screen like you did earlier in the preseason.
Right, try to not have those turnovers. Courtney, it was great being with you today. Thanks to Courtney Cronin for being with us. And in case you missed it, the Colts named Daniel Jones the starter in Indy, beating out Anthony Richardson. Now, Shane Steichen gave his reasoning on the decision this week.
Look, he's our starting quarterback for the season. I don't want to have a quick leash on that. I feel confident in his abilities. I think consistency, operation, moving the ball, being consistent on a daily basis. I think Daniel Jones, has done that. I think, that year they went to the playoffs. He was 1 game away from an NFC championship game and making the right decisions, and his completion percentage, I think that keeps us on track. So that's a big part of it. Obviously, you want to see the big plays. I think Daniel Jones is capable of that as well.
So, Jeremy, is he done? Should we actually be looking for an Anthony Richardson trade out of Indy?
Well, Hannah, here's why I won't take that off the table.
Okay.
Derek Jackson, who's the agent for Anthony Richardson, is supposed to meet with the Colts and Chris Ballard, the GM, at some point next week. What comes of that meeting could determine a lot, because this is a player that's frustrated, not only frustrated, but wants to play. He knows he needs to play. He hasn't had a lot of reps, even dating back to high school. He feels like he needs to be on the field. He feels like he answered the bell at camp, had a good camp, answered the questions that they had about his leadership and his work ethic. Did all those things. Now he has this frustration, has to figure out something to do with it. I had a great quote from an AFC exec today I was talking to. They said, put him on the Eagles and let him play a little bit. One read, run the ball. Like, he's still probably the most athletic quarterback in the entire league despite the inexperience. So people around the league are sort of toying with the idea of him being on another team. He wouldn't have huge trade value because the production's not there, but he would have value.
Wow. I mean, to go from Indy to the Eagles, that would be quite a move, even with limited play.
Not that they need it, but he would have to go somewhere almost like Trey Lance did a couple years ago.
Exactly.
Where he built his career a little bit.
Right. Some sneaky big news out of Atlanta, by the way, this week, where Michael Penix Jr. could be without his blindside protection to start the season. Jeremy, you were all over this story, posting Falcons right tackle Caleb McGarry will miss time on the apparent leg injury suffered Wednesday, per source, who added the exact timetable is not immediately known. But for now, he's out of the lineup. And, I mean, Bill, you've got ankle surgery for Storm Norton, your backup tackle. He's expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. So how concerned are you about this Falcons O-line?
This is a nightmare scenario for the Atlanta Falcons. It's like you said, right tackle means more to them than just about any other team in football because their quarterback, Michael Penix, is left-handed. So that means now his blind side has their top two options off the table. Elijah Wilkinson was getting some reps there. They could call, the Texans about Trent Brown or maybe the Chiefs about Wanya Morris, but suddenly that spot is now a incredibly weak part of your offensive line, protecting your inexperienced young quarterback as he enters in his first full season as the starter. A lot of quarterbacks don't like to throw hot off their blind side, so you can do more with your front side. You can kind of shield your protections that way, do what you can to protect him, and then let the quarterback see the pressure coming from the front side, but it is totally different from your blind side. So this is a very difficult scenario the Falcons are going to have to deal with for what might be a couple months here, depending on what happens with Caleb McGarry's testing.
And all of this under the prism of not having made the playoffs since 2017. It's been that long for the Atlanta Falcons. Coming up next, Bill is back.